Get ready to do life and business on your terms and truly live your big ticket life. You either make excuses or you choose to level up. Amazing guests living the big ticket life. Woo! Woo! Brandon Britton here.
Appreciate you having me here today, man.
It's that kind of discernment, that kind of focus, that kind of forward thinking that's so important if you're going to succeed in business today.
Jeff and I are like friends. We're real friends.
We are And so you unlock fortune and freedom without all the stress that normally comes along with it.
It all comes down to your why. Your business, why are you doing it? How is it going to change the world and what's it going to do for your family?
I want you to celebrate your success.
Talk about the struggle. But I promise you, the story is in your struggle.
They'll never be able to say that about me because people only see me working hard at anything that I'm doing whenever they see me.
Focus on your success and the success of those around you.
But being that constant in your community, good or bad, whether things are great in the community, bad in the community, be steady.
Unapologetically do business and life on your terms and truly live your big ticket life. Amazing guests living the big ticket life. And we discuss how they do it and the big ticket methods they use. The things that make your life successful so you do life and business on your terms.
In and of itself, the only limitations that we really have on ourselves is the ones that we allow to be put on ourselves. And most people don't look at it in that perspective.
There's nothing wrong with being humble, but there's also nothing wrong with stepping into your superpower and letting people know who you are.
Get ready to do life and business on your terms and truly live your big ticket life. All right. Well, listen, I am super excited for today's conversation with Bennett Maxwell. I've gotten to know him over the last handful of months. And, when we first met, he was on the tail end of a successful exit after only 18 months of building out a solar company. And then he immediately launches into this new cookie franchise called Dirty Dough. And I can tell you from his competitor in my town, he's onto something because people love themselves some bougie cookies. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. He's up to 60 locations under agreement or operating already. And on top of that, he's building this thing out with a purpose that you'll love. So Bennett, my friend, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. I'm excited to be here. Excuse the weird voice right now. Got a really scratchy voice.
Yeah, you're pushing through. You had a procedure the other day, and it is affecting your voice a little bit. So I appreciate you making the time. I really, really do for the show and for the guests that watch. We appreciate it. So thanks. Yeah. So Dirty Dough cookie franchise. Let's first start out with the purpose and the give back that you're making a part of the culture. That's part of how you're going to operate. And I love when businesses do that. So why don't you, let's jump in and share with our listeners what you're doing with your give back aspect of Dirty Dough.
But I'm starting, my sales career was door-to-door sales, starting in pest control. College dude in pest control, you're selling pest control to make money, and it was great money, but there's no really passion behind it. Sold a few different things, and then until I landed on solar, and I noticed how big of a difference it was to be passionate about something, to be like, hey, this is a win-win. It was just a very easy sell, and I was always saving people money with solar. I'm like, yeah, it's way better to have a bigger purpose of helping people rather than just the money. A lot of it also came, I was doing the kind of the core values exercises. One of them is write your obituary. And I'm kind of thinking I don't care to be known for money. Who cares if you're successful or if you have money, at least, that as myself going through that exercise. So instead it's how many people could I positively impact? How many people can I help live fulfilled, happy lives? Anyway, so with that in mind, the Dirty Dough is all about mental health. So that's everything that we're doing in there. It's that mental health focus. And it started with looking at the competitors' cookies. When I purchased this company, it was one existing location. That's where we're still at today, just one open. But like you said, Jeff, we have 60 opening. The first 5 are next month. So
Fantastic.
looking at all these cookies, it's all about, they're clean, they look good, they're perfect. And I've been following a guy named Jonathan Haidt for the last few years. And he's a psychologist and tracking the suicide and self-harm rates in kids and teens and correlating it with the rise in social media. So at the time I listened to it, I had a 2-year-old daughter and a newborn daughter. And compared to 15 years ago, both my daughters are like 150% more likely to go to the hospital because of self-harm. It's like, crap, what do you do about that? Anyway, so when I bought this company, we said dirty dough, the dough is dirty. We're going to focus on the inside of the cookie. And then that's a positive message. It's all about, the inside matters most. So there's my 2 daughters right there. And then my little boy, that's 1. But it's the inside matters most. And that's what I wanted to push out. So I noticed my daughter at 4 years old, she was watching this YouTube video of a guy playing with his daughter, a dad playing with his daughter, really good, clean content. But she's already comparing herself at 4 years old to this, YouTuber. Daddy, I want what this person has. I want to go where this person has, but she has that, right? So it was like, man, at 4 years old, she's already starting this mental health. Like, I'm going to compare my normal, boring, imperfect life with somebody else's perfect Instagram life. So that's what Dirty Dough is all about, is fighting against that and showing life is messy and dirty, but it's meant to be enjoyed just like these cookies. So we're doing wellness centers in K through 12 schools. So we're converting old classrooms into a wellness center with the focus of educating kids on mental health. I really want to beat the stigma of right now, mental health is you go focus on it if you're mentally ill, but nobody's proactive on it. And that's really what I want to push with these wellness rooms is how do we practice mental health every week, maybe even every day, just like we do with our physical health. Because if you're trying to live a fulfilled, happy life, what's more important than the mental health. So that's kind of what we're doing, building out this wellness rooms. And then all of our messaging with Dirty Dough is the inside matters most, kind of be authentic, come as you are type messaging that we're pushing out.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I'm an involved parent at a local level with our local school district. So I've heard the stories, I've seen it. We unfortunately, I guess it was about this time, early spring last year, a young adult, young boy, he committed suicide. My wife coached him for, I think, a league or 2 season in bowling in like the little youth bowling program that they have at your local bowling centers. So it was sad. I mean, it was sad for our community. And I love the focus that making this a proactive part of an upbringing, because you're 100% right. Social media is tremendously powerful, as you and I know, providing you ride it like Seabiscuit and make it positive. But if you just let it go, I mean, this is a deep level. And I had a previous guest on, Kurt Mercadante. You could check out that episode if you're listening. I mean, if we just let social media go, it will live out the matrix where the robots and the machines take over the world and destroy it. If you just let it do what the algorithm's programmed to do and what it responds to, it will be a very negative thing. So I love the focus that you're putting on it as a proactive effort and these spaces in schools, because it's, I think there's so much of what happens in school that is just so programmed to lead down this predetermined path. And there's no pause button. There's no off ramp to focus on positivity in mental health. So I really like that. That's a very cool focus.
So these rooms will
building
have
into the culture. Yeah. Tell us about the rooms.
So you can pop in these rooms for a limited amount of time, 10 to maybe 15 minutes is all. And it's all about educating yourself on mental health and actually practicing different mental health techniques. So you can grab an iPad. It's going to walk you through guided meditation or breathing exercises or mindfulness, happiness mindset, different things like that. So that's what these rooms are for. It's a spot to come to work on your mental health, not so much as to escape the world, because I don't think that that's super beneficial to, a safe space to escape the problems, but rather they're problems. They're going to continue to be problems. Let's learn how to cope and confront those problems with the correct tools rather than just, looking for a safe space.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I really like it. And the breathing thing, this is another, I'm positive there are entire podcast shows dedicated to the concept of healthy breathing and meditative
Mhm.
breathing. Um, and if you think I'm silly, if you're listening to this, get into, Google box breathing, Google easy breathing exercises, and commit to it for a week,
Yeah.
and you
Wim
will be
Hof.
shocked at how your body has unlearned how to properly breathe.
Have you heard of Wim Hof, Jeff? A guy, he's
I have
some European guy.
went Yeah, I
He
believe
like does
so. Yes.
marathons in shorts in the freaking Mount Kilimanjaro, like in shorts.
Okay.
He's all about the breathing, and it's crazy. Like I didn't believe any of this, and I had to research it. Yeah, there's Wim Hof. Um,
Okay.
he's crazy, but he's been able to train other people what he does, and they will inject them with bacteria, and through his breathing exercise, he won't get sick. And then he's like, okay, well, all the doctors are like, well, you're just an anomaly. And then he went and trained a few dozen people how to do it, but just
Mm,
some good stuff. So
yeah.
definitely,
Yep.
if you breathe correctly, your state of mind changes completely.
I can attest to that. I focus on it every day. We've got Kyle Slaymaker, friend, fan of the show, Slaymaker Sales Method. His wife, Elizabeth, actually works in the district where my kids go. She's a
Okay.
fantastic special education teacher, one of the unsung heroes in our education system. So Kyle thinks we need to connect you two. So I'll make that happen after the show for sure.
Awesome.
She's kind of going down. She's got some dreams and endeavors of her own. So I'll make a connection there for sure. But so the solar thing, you found purpose with solar because you realize, hey, this is a win-win. People immediately save money. It is adding an alternative source of energy into the whole mix that is our energy need, and the demand on our energy system. So that was cool. So you started there, you loved it, you built it, and then you sold it. So walk us through that journey.
Yeah. So I started the company January of 2020 with my brother. We co-founded it mainly door to door, but we also did some online sales and marketing. Um, but we started with the E-Myth method. If you've ever heard of that book, of
Oh yeah.
how do you work yourself out of the business basically as quickly as possible. So you're working on the
Yep.
business rather than in the business. You're creating an organization chart of how you think the company's going to look in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And then you're filling your heads, in every single position, and then you slowly replace yourself. So about a year after starting the company, we had done that. We'd replaced ourselves, and so things were kind of on autopilot at that point. And the opportunity came to buy Dirty Dough January of 2021. So then that's when I jumped into Dirty Dough, but I was still running the solar stuff a little bit. And then there was an opportunity to exit the company in June of 2021. So yeah, that 18 months later. So I did that. I sold the company so I could jump full time into cookies. But no, I loved the solar journey. It was definitely really quick, but taught me a lot about business, about scalability, and then also being able to grow something and then quickly exit it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I work with people and let them know, guide them into that investor seat in their own business. A lot of people start a business because they're very emotionally connected to it. It might be a generational thing. They might take over a family business. It might be a passion project. All of that has its place. All of it is great. I applaud it. However, what I don't applaud is you basically, as a business owner, having a job
You
at
own
the
your
end
own
of the
job.
day.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I was in the furniture mattress industry on the wholesale side, I counseled many small independent furniture shop and mattress store owners. I said, listen, this is going to be some harsh words, but you need to go work for your competition.
Hmm.
Okay. You are not positioned to move beyond where you're at. You're unwilling to, I would spend time giving them marketing ideas, giving them input on how to grow their business, try new things. You're unwilling to do that. You're very comfortable, and that's okay. If you're happy with 110 grand a year, you can go make that as a manager, and these chain stores will take
Hmm.
you on. But you are at a crossroads. You just don't realize it. And
Yeah.
until you make a plan to shift into that investor seat, or as you built the entire business, which is so opposite of what you hear so many people do, right? Like they start out as the chief everything officer, the chivo, as I call it, and they just get stuck in that rut. So you started out, obviously, you didn't have a bunch of people right away. So how did you balance knowing you needed the heads, knowing you needed the people, but still, there had to be a point in time where you're like, well, we still got to answer the phones. We still got to write the emails. We still got to do the estimates, and we still have to do the fulfillment. So how did you balance that?
Yeah. So it was little by little, you build this org chart. So like I specifically was more over the sales side, a lot of the ops as well. So you start with the lowest position. So, a door-to-door sales rep. And then what do they do? What are their responsibilities? And you build out that job, and then you hire somebody. So I hired my first sales rep in January of 2020. And then, okay, now that made me the sales manager at that point. So what does the sales manager do? How do they do incentives? How do they coordinate? How do they do, team meetings? And then I developed that, we're going to do these slide presentations. So it's, an interactive meeting. We do some role playing, under this model, and then you hire a manager, or you promote, the sales rep up to a manager. And then, okay, well, the next position is your VP of sales. So now I had 2 managers underneath me. They both had, small teams underneath them. So I now am in the VP of sales, and I'm overseeing them. I'm holding them accountable to their goals, helping them strategize. So I built out that position. Then I hired somebody to fill that position, which again, then pushed me up to kind of the next level. And then we did the same thing with ops. So in solar, it's like, who's building your proposals? Well, I learned how to build all the proposals. Then I hired somebody that was actually overseas. I hired some people out of the Philippines. They did the proposals, and then the account management. And here's how it is, documenting everything meticulously. So you can plug in somebody without having to spend, obviously it takes time to train them, but if everything's written down, using Loom a lot, screen recordings, project management system, we were using Asana. So it's like, hey, here's everything that you need to do to make a proposal. And here's a video as well, if you'd like to watch that. And then kind of working your way up on the ops till we have a regional ops manager that's overseeing that team in the Philippines. And yeah, both of those people we hired, in just about a year's time from starting the business. And once we had those two, kind of everything was running pretty smoothly. So it's just little by little.
That's pretty, I just want to kind of come back to the fact that you had operations managers sourced through the virtual assistant world.
Mm-hmm.
Normally when people think of virtual assistants, it's more menial task, check this box, do this, very simple things.
Right.
But I've come to learn, in our Apex network, Justin Nelson with Sphere Rocket. The world of virtual assistants is pretty incredible. You've just shared it.
Yeah.
So
what they were running everything.
Yeah. So was other than boots on the ground and the teams, I'm guessing you contracted out the installation?
Yes.
Yeah. So other than boots on the ground, doing the selling and the teams, everything else was everything else mostly VA?
Yeah. And we use them to
That's wild.
Supplement a lot of like the manager's task as well. Because a manager, we want them to lead from the front. We want them to sell. Typically a good salesperson isn't always the most organized person. So like on Mondays, we would have our Monday madness. So everybody would challenge each other, like, I think I can sell more accounts than you, whatever. Well, the following Monday, whoever wins gets to eat lunch in front of the rest of the team, and whoever loses, they get their punishment, whatever. But so the managers would kind of come up with this, but the VAs would give them a pitch deck, and a slide deck, right? This is the presentation. They would go make some edits, but now the presentations look nice. All of the competitions were tracked by the virtual assistants, and then they would send out a DoorDash link to all of the winners and say, hey, we're eating at Chick-fil-A today. You can order up to $15, but it's like now the manager doesn't have to do all of that. And these virtual assistants are way more organized. So I do think they get kind of caught up with that stigma of, they can't do high level things. And why not? They're people, right? There's some shitty workers here in the States, and there's some shitty workers in the Philippines, but there's some great workers here and there's some great workers there. So did you find the right person? And if you did you train them right? And if you're training them right and you have the right person, it doesn't matter if they work for you in Florida or they work for you in India. They should be able to do the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I love the fact that you built the operational structure to have a VA work with
Mhm.
the sales manager to shed the weakest tasks, the things they liked to or didn't like to do the most, or straight out hated to do,
Or
or
they did,
wouldn't
and they
do.
weren't good at it. They just weren't.
Right. I mean, I love that combination. I don't know that I've ever heard that before. I mean, again, my frame of reference, and I've hired VAs in the past, has always been, this job, this role,
Mhm.
it's now pushed over there, as opposed to working in Congress, working in a complementing role. That's really, really smart. I hope people listen to that and look at it, because if you've read the E-Myth book, I mean, Bennett built a business around it. I mean, you could be like the, camera over the shoulder, walking living version of it. Really, really smart. That's really smart. Love it. So you got to the exit point, and this is where you often hear you get to this point of selling. Well, first and foremost, you don't often hear of people actually getting to a point of selling their business, right?
Mhm.
Because again, so many people, as you know, they're stuck in that chief everything officer role. They're happy to make their money. They're happy to, say they own the business. So they've never envisioned the exit. You got there. Was there anything that came up that was out of left field that almost like sank the deal? Did it go as planned? What can you share there?
Um, Nothing came up to that about sank the deal, but definitely didn't go 100% according to plan. Uh, it was a public company, so they gave a decent amount of cash. I mean, not a ton, but multiple six figures cash, and then all the stock was promised. And that stock, I mean, I just got it issued to me within the last month, and now stock's tanked, but didn't work out as far as like all the promises of the stock. But again, coming from the door to door world here in Utah, like every company promises this artificial stock. I thought this one was maybe a little bit more secure because it was an actually publicly traded company. But at the end of the day,
Right.
I made the decision based on if I just got the cash, I didn't get any stock, would I still do it? And the answer is yes, because it's a nice exit and Dirty Dough is starting to take off. And I saw a lot more potential um,
Yeah.
in that route. So yeah, the stock stuff is it's always like, yeah, we're gonna give you all this stock and this and that, and then it takes forever. And then once you get it, then you have to vest. And then while it's vesting, you're subject to all these different things. And I'm like, I just want to focus on my cookie business right now. So
Yeah. 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 No, that's very, very uh, interesting, and glad you could share it, because you need to understand. I mean, cash is good, stock is good, they're both good, but if you don't understand the one or the other,
yeah.
you can be in a position where you're not so happy with the exit. But I'm glad it worked out, that you got the cash you needed. Were you able to kind of take a little bit of a break, spend some family time in between, or
Um,
was it just kind of running concurrent? You just ran from solar to cookies.
Yeah, kind of ran from solar to cookies, which started me down the mental health path as well. I mean, me focusing on myself. I grew up thinking if you have anxiety or if you have depression, it's in your head. Even if you had a headache, like that's just in your head. Just think happy thoughts. So like I just didn't
Mm,
experience any of that. And it was I sold the company, um, and I'm like, I was 28 at the time, and I'd hit the $1 million net worth that I wanted to hit before 30. And I'm like, this feels great. Like I feel on top of the world for about, a few days or a week. And then it just went down to my normal level of happiness. And that scared me. And then I'm like, I told myself, once I make my first summer that I do six figures, and then my first summer that I do $250,000, then we can do this or then we can do that. And then I just finally, when I'm like, I'm 28, I have an over $1 million net worth. Why did I just go work a full day the next day? Right? Why am I still working weekends? So at that time, I actually started seeing a therapist for the first time. Didn't feel like I had any anxiety or depression, did have some high stress, but I'm just like, what am I doing? Like why do I work towards something and then I achieve it and then I enjoy it for a very brief moment of time, then I go to the next thing. So that got me into what is my purpose? Why am I here? And then I made a
Right.
lot of changes after that. So I work a pretty strict 9 to 5. Don't work after 5 o'clock. Don't work on the weekends. I have dinner every night at 6 o'clock with my family, date night every Friday night with my wife. Really pivoted a lot of things because it's like, again, there's no point in working hard if I'm just going to always put the next goal, go work towards it, achieve it, and then
Yep.
go put another, so it's like, when am I going to enjoy myself? When am I going to kind of tap on the brakes a little bit? So that's what I've been doing. It hasn't affected my business at all. I'm a lot more effective in the hours that I do work, but I'm very strict on like my purpose. I don't believe my purpose is to grow a ginormous company and make a lot of money. It's how do I live a fulfilled and happy life? So anyways, that was also a very pivotal moment when I sold that business to get myself into the mental health, and like seeing a therapist is making me happier, right? It's helping me understand who I am, why I think the way I am. We all have these, we say we value our family more than anything, but we don't show it. So it's like, well, do you really, or do you just not know how to? Anyways, I'm a very big proponent of everybody, especially people in business, should see a therapist. You should know how your mind works. You should know what drives you, what doesn't drive you, where your actions don't align with your beliefs, and then work on those.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, thank you for sharing that, because the fact that you see a therapist and work on yourself. Again, I don't know that I've ever listened to a podcast where somebody openly shared that. And it's sad that there's such a mental stigma around it, or such a stigma around it as weakness, because in reality, it's not, right? Being strong in your mind is actually probably one of the biggest flexes you can make in life. So
Well, I
that's
mean,
very cool that you shared that. I appreciate it.
we're both part of Apex. We have a business coach,
Mhm.
right? I've always used personal trainers. It's like, but again, for me to be happier and more fulfilled, is a business coach going to get me there, or weightlifting coach, or a mental health coach / therapist?
Right.
If I could choose one of those three, I think it would be the therapist / mental coach, because you're working on your mind and that's where your happiness comes from. So anyways, but we don't think about that. I never thought about it like that. It's just, well, if I'm successful and I have a business coach and I can lift a lot of weights and my body's healthy, whatever, then I'm going to be happy. But it's like, well, no, look at all the people that are successful out there that aren't happy, that have big businesses, that aren't spending
Yep.
time with the people they love.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can look at the Tiger Woods example, right?
Mhm.
Top of the world, like top of the world. And, just has an addiction that he is unable to keep in check. Well, became an addiction. Obviously, addictions are naturally unable to be kept in check, and just doing some down low stuff and got caught. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, work on yourself. Very important. Appreciate you sharing that. So you've created that space for that family time, that space to unwind, that space to be impactful. Again, I'll reference him because he was such a great guest, Kurt Mercadante, a couple episodes back. He asked the question of his clients, what's the price to buy your wife? And that's a pretty in your face, abrupt question,
Yeah.
right? And he doesn't approach it from an angle of, I want to sleep with your wife. It's really kind of pushing back on his clients, and really anybody who might be listening to this. When you say to yourself, if I can just get to another 50 grand a year in income, or 100 grand a year in income, or hit that $1 million a year in wealth, really what you're doing is trading off your family, because that's what you're saying. I just need to get here, so I then have dinners at 6 o'clock every night.
Yep.
And a date night on Friday. So you've built that in, which is awesome to hear. I love when people build in these spaces, whether it be a physical place. This week I've worked on an amazing deck up at my campsite, and we did the same in our house here, because I love to kind of sit outside and relax with a cigar and take that time to reflect and chill, right? But I love that you've built it in. Your daughter, if we go back to the beginning of our time on the show today, your daughter realized from that YouTube video that there was a different relationship out there that child had with her father. So what are those videos like now with you and your family, now that you've got that space?
Well, she's not allowed to watch YouTube anymore. My wife's like, no more YouTube. I still have YouTube on my phone. So when I come home from work, my daughter's like, can I have 3 minutes YouTube? I'll give her 3 minutes. But I mean, it's again going back to that show and kind of what I was bringing up was it's very good, clean content. It's a dad playing with his daughter. They also have
Mhm.
a baby brother. But the thing is, this 5 or 6 year old daughter, watching this, it's like a real life, right? It's a kind of vlogging. You think that this is 100% real, which it is. I mean, a guy's following around with the camera, right? But very like kind of raw footage. But what you don't ever see is you don't ever see the little girl cry. You don't ever see the little girl
Mm.
be put in timeout. You don't ever see the little girl fight with her brother. But as a 4 year
Right.
old, I don't know if you make that connection, right? You just look at it and like, oh, she doesn't fight with her brother. Oh, she doesn't ever
As a
fight with her dad.
40-year-old, people don't make that connection on digital and
Yeah.
social media today.
So it's man, it was just at 4 years old. It was kind of like this is meant to be like a very casual, like this is my day-to-day life. But of course, they're not showing when the daughter starts screaming, and like every kid
Yep.
goes through a temper tantrum. But it's like, well, not on YouTube. Not on YouTube, they don't. They don't get put in timeout on YouTube. So what does that make my daughter feel like when she fights with her sisters or with her sister, her brother, and we put her in timeout? Well, that's not fair. Adley doesn't. That's the name of that little girl. So, anyways, again, I think that's like the cleanest content you can get, but because they're not going to. I mean, I'm not saying that they should show their daughter crying. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But it's just that's the issue right now. It's very
Yeah.
very good clean
Yeah.
content, best you can find, but it's still, I think, has a big effect on my daughter.
Well, I mean, it's a very, very appropriate example of how even the most innocent
Mhm.
content you take in can create this falsity in your mind. So you have to be so um, intelligent and thoughtful with what you do take in and the
Yeah.
questions you ask around it. I saw Dr. B, our friend Brian Holly. He made a post this morning. I'm thinking it's his AirPods case. It had a note, something of written right on the case in a Sharpie marker. Be intentional about what you take in because what goes in comes out.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, that's
Oh,
pretty smart to put it right on
that
your
is-
AirPod case, And again, like we create these spaces for happy moments. Um, you dinner at 6 every night, date nights with your wife on Fridays. Um, we also need to create these speed bumps, these roadblocks of, hey, keep yourself in check here, right? Don't
Yep.
don't go spend half an hour listening to some podcast where people just want and complain about politics, right?
Yeah.
Very, very smart. Love how you've built that life. So what's the family, the kids, you put that schedule in. What's been the biggest accolade, the biggest joy that's come from all of that?
Um, Even when I first made the decision to stop working at 5, like that's this family time. And then I still didn't feel like it was real good family time. Like I wasn't just with, I mean, because you can be there not working, but you're not necessarily present. So the dinner thing, again, that's something my therapist told me to do. Like, do dinner every night, set. Because if you put your phone down and everybody's eating around the dinner table at 6 o'clock, like you are present. You can't not be present at that point. If I just stop working at 5, I go lay on the couch, have a show in the background. Maybe I'm thumbing through my phone or something. That is not that I'm not being present. I'm not working, but I'm really not enjoying that family time. So we go on literally every single day I come from work and my older daughter, hey daddy, can we go on a date? And it's like, she wants to walk to Walmart typically. And we buy a Kinder egg, has a little toy and has a little chocolate on one side, but we do that
Nice.
most days. Or we run to the dollar store. She'll do a chore. We'll give her $1. We run to the dollar store and she gets something. But even taking it a step further and doing the, daddy daughter dates I take both of those girls out probably 4 nights a week. Even if it's just 10, 20 minutes, we go do something because
Yep.
again, it was first like, let me just stop working, but that's not enough. It's let's stop working, but now I have to be present. How do I be present? Well, dinner, I'm present during dinner. And if it's just me walking around with these girls, like I'm definitely present. And it's allowed me to enjoy them so much more.
Yeah, that's really,
You can see them.
really cool to hear.
They're adorable. They're so
They
fun.
are. Yep. Yeah, I mean, very cool. Love seeing
just-
one of my guests are doing this kind of stuff. It's very, very
So
cool.
this was in Greece and 2 weeks ago. We go on a vacation probably, I mean, at least every other month. Because the same thing, like why do we work so hard and achieve success so we can retire and go on vacation when we're 60? It's like, no, I want to have
Right.
these mini retirements. Have you ever heard of the 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss?
Yep.
He talks about these mini
Yep.
retirements. So we try to do, like, next month, my wife's going to Mexico for a whole month, and I'll come towards the latter half of the month to kind of be with her. But yeah, typically every other month we try to go take a family vacation for a week.
Yeah. Very cool. Love it. So to keep those mini vacations going,
Yeah.
they're probably going to get grander and grander, which will require money, but you'll do it the right way where you won't sacrifice. So you're going to get there with these cookies.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, dirty dough cookies look pretty amazing. You've started this out. We've talked about crumble a little bit. I referenced it earlier. The crumble in my town, like it has hit hard. People like are into these cookies.
They kill it. Crumbles do so well. It's such a good brand.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us a little bit about dirty dough, right?
Yeah, so
I know the story, but I would share with the listeners how you got involved, why you got involved. Let's jump into that.
So I was trying to buy a crumble, and kind of going back to what we were just talking about, the E-myth and owning your own job. When you own your own job, that's not the best place to be in, because typically it's a shitty job because you get paid last and you work the most, right?
Yep.
So it's like, well,
Yep.
I don't let's go work for the competition and make my 110,000 rather than me owning my own job type of deal. So I'm a very big proponent into that and trading money for money rather than time for money. So when I was presented with the opportunity to buy a crumble franchise, I really wanted one, but they were already sold out of Utah and they require you to be owner operated. And that just kind of went against my beliefs of, well, you're telling me I can buy a job from you? Like, I don't really want to do that. So when I bought Dirty Dough, I wanted it to be more of the passive income. I mean, obviously a business needs attention, right? But it's like, you don't need to go move to Nashville if you want to go open up a cookie company. You can go open it up, hire a really good manager, because we've simplified everything. So I like that you paused right here. That's a blueberry lemon cookie. So the outside dough is blueberry, the middle is lemon. And we have other ones that even have a third layer that maybe there's a blueberry filling coming out of, in the middle of that lemon dough. So
that would be mine.
Yeah. So all of these cookies, rather than going the route of a lot of the competition, they all order their own ingredients. They hire their own employees to mix the dough. Every cookie you get, they grab the dough by hand, they put it on a scale little by little till it weighs just right. Then they grab it and ball it. And it's just a plain cookie. Well, if you want to get to these 2 and 3 layer cookies, you have to, it just takes even longer to weigh everything out and longer to combine it all. So we've centralized all the production. So we mix 700 cookies at a time. We throw it through a machine that makes the cookies, these 2-3 layer cookies, and all of the quality control is now done at a corporate level. So we send these dough pucks, these pre-portioned dough pucks, to each of the franchisees. Now they're still baked fresh every single hour, so there's no difference in the freshness, but it allows the quality control to be done at a corporate level. It cuts our labor in half. It cuts our build out cost to open up a store in half. And then it doesn't require, you don't need to hire bakers. You don't need to learn how to bake yourself. You'll never have to mix dough or anything. You're just popping in the oven. So
Yeah.
I wanted to lower that barrier of entry into owning a business, particularly a franchise. You don't need to be a food expert, and you don't need a ton of money, because these are very low cost compared to everything else that's out there. I mean, they're like 175 to 225 is what the kind of the range that most of them are coming in, but you can get an SBA loan for 80% of that amount. So $45,000, you can have a really good business with just, less than 10 employees that's bringing you in 6 figures. And it's a model that it's built to last, kind of like Mrs. Fields cookies. That's what Mrs. Fields does. They do all centralized production, and they've been around for 40 years. They've weathered several recessions. They've handed down a Mrs. Fields store from mom to son, or from son to grandson, because it's such a, you see Mrs. Fields, they have small square footage. They have low startup costs, low employees. So that's kind of what we've tried to take these large gourmet cookies on the front end, keep that the same, weekly rotating flavors, but on the back end, let's create a very robust model that's a lot less inexpensive to start up. And then if you centralize your production, all your costs come down, right? You don't go through third party distributors. You don't order 50-pound bags of flour. You order a truckload of flour directly from the source. So our cost of goods come down drastically all at the same time. So that's kind of the model that I've been developing at Dirty Dough. And that's what's allowed us to sell 60 stores with only one store open, because they're seeing how simple the model is. I mean, when the timer goes out, take out the cookies,
Right.
Or you messed up.
Well, and I want to come back to the leverage of what you've built in to Dirty Dough. I would contend it's more a la McDonald's than anything, right? Because McDonald's, I believe this is still the case. I know it once was because I saw the agreement. If you as an owner operator are caught working inside your franchise, you are subject to losing that franchise.
Okay. Yeah, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because that is not the recipe for success. So I love that you've really built this in, and for the leverage, if I remember correctly, you have some pretty big talent on the corporate development team for the cookies, for the ingredients and the sourcing. Is that right?
Yeah, we hired a lady, she wrote all of our ops manual. She worked for a company called Maui Wowie, did all their franchise training for over a decade. So very experienced in the franchise world. The lady who actually started Maui Wowie Smoothies and Coffees back in the 80s, it was the first ever mobile franchise system to exist. You had to go through like a dozen attorneys to figure this out. She grew it to just under 700 locations, sold it, then took another company from nothing all the way to 90 locations. And then I hired her on in December as CEO. And then, so we had a really good kind of franchising experience, because I'm doing my best to learn everything, but I'm also living the E-Myth, right? Like I'm trying to replace myself. So like right now my title is founder and I don't have any real responsibilities. Not that I don't work. I work more than anybody probably, like during my 9 to 5, like I'm a go-getter for sure. But it's, what do I see that needs done that day? Do we need a little bit of help on the sales, a little bit of help on the operations? Do I need to get the name out? Do I need to be on a podcast? Things like that. And then we hired some really good talent to oversee the warehouse as well as all the logistics. There's a company called American Crafts. They do paper craft supplies. And about 2.5 years ago, they wanted to get into food crafts. So they hired Josh, the guy that's built everything out for us now. And in 2.5 years, he took them from, no food division. Last year, they did 70 million in just the food division. So again, got him. And then another guy who had sold his trucking company. They did 50 million in trucking last year. He came on board to do all of our logistics to make sure that the cookies are there on time when they need to be.
I mean, really what you've just described, the way that you've assembled the talent and leveraged that talent and will leverage their skills, you're skating to where the puck's going to be. Mm-hmm. You're hiring for the future. You're not hiring for today. You're not hiring for 6 months ago because you needed a CFO or a CEO or an ops manager 6 months ago, and you've been shouldering it. And it's so good to relieve that burden today, when in reality, you're hiring. What you're really doing is you're hiring for where Dirty Dough is going to be in 3 years.
Yeah.
Or more. It's really incredible.
If we want to open up 500 plus stores, we have to have somebody that's done it before. Right. Yep. And we have multiple people that have done that before, because we also have a really good board of advisors that have had several hundred franchisees. So yeah, it's definitely starting with the end in mind of like, okay, how are we going to get this to 1,000 stores? Who are the key players? And let's just hire them now. Because if it's going to work, then we're going to need them. And then it's a very different story of like, oh, hey, should we try this out? Should we try out this special type of cookie? It's like, well, no, if it doesn't go through the machine, we can't try it out because it's not scalable. Mm-hmm. So why try it out if it's only going to work in a handful of stores? It has to be scalable. It has to be consistent. So it's allowed us to make these decisions a lot easier of, are we going to do it or not? Well, does it work with 1,000 stores? And if the model works with 1,000 stores, then yes, let's offer that product. Yes, let's offer that cookie. Yes, let's offer, take home cookie dough, whatever it is, but it has to fit. It has to be a model that can fit in 1,000 stores.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it has to also, what you've just described complements what's ahead when it comes to sourcing labor.
Mhm.
You know, you and if you want the same experience from, Dirty Dough in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where I do business, to Dirty Dough in Lancaster, California, or as it said, Lancaster, which I don't even know what that is. But anyway, it's got to be the same cookie, right? It's got to be the same cookie, from literally in that example, shore to shore. And so it's really smart what you've done, because you've taken away that opportunity for bad quality to exist, which hurts the franchisee,
Yep.
which hurts the ultimately the consumer belief in the brand.
Yep. And on top of that, we've also taken away most of the areas of waste. So when I bought the company, I saw 3 areas of waste. You have your raw ingredient waste. So you have a blueberry cookie. How many blueberries do you order? And what do you do with your leftover blueberries? Your raw ingredient that didn't make it into a cookie. Well, those get thrown away, right? That cookie's not coming back for months if it ever comes back. And then number 2,
Right.
you have teenagers working in your store and they mess up when they mix the batches, right? They just do. And every time they mess up, you have to throw it all away. And then the third area is at the end of the night, you throw away all your cookies. You let your employees take one home, and then you have to throw away all the rest. So the raw ingredients, well, the franchisees don't touch raw ingredients. So there is no waste there. Messing up a batch of dough, well, they don't mix any dough. So there's no opportunity to waste there. And at the end of the night, rather than throwing away our cookies, we repurpose them in shakes the following days with a very, very simple process, like kind of like a McFlurry machine. Rather than using a whole blender that you have to clean the whole blender, there's waste on the blender. It pulverizes the cookie. This is kind of just a little mixing arm. You mix it inside the cup that the customer is going to eat out of. So there's nothing to clean. There's no waste, and it keeps the cookies chunky, the shake chunky rather than pulverizing it. So little things like that. Those are the 3 areas of waste. Those are how I address those. So again, just getting higher margins for our franchisees, because if it's a higher margin, then it's a lower risk, which is lowering the barrier of entry for more people to own businesses and create passive wealth. And that's what I'm trying to provide to our franchisees.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I was going to comment, you're killing me with the McFlurry thing, because my favorite McFlurry is the Reese's peanut butter cup McFlurry. Like that is my jam right there. I will break a diet. I would go off a 75 hard for
McFlurries
it,
are
but
delicious.
they don't seem to be bringing it back, so I don't have to worry about that. But man, a Dirty Dough cookie shake. I mean, that just sounds amazing to me. So as we're getting to the end of our time, so you're franchising this thing, and that's cool. And so for me personally, I will never franchise my business for the sole reason that I'm a small government. I don't want government in my life or business any more than it has to be. Now, obviously, for your franchisees, they don't really need to worry about that, short of, having their local business licenses, occupancy permits, which of course you would, your operations manual and team will help them through all that. But at a high level, for me, it's just a no-go. Like it's one of my things that I just won't do in business. Because it's just not for me. So was that a thing for you? How was navigating getting the franchising setting up? I mean, obviously you've handled it because you've sold 60 of them, but like for me, it's just a no-go. So for you, obviously you've conquered it.
The cons of franchising, you don't have as much control as obviously if they're your own stores. And then you have these government regulations and all these other stuff as well as a franchisor. So I did go back and forth there. Do we want to be corporate owned or do we want to be franchise owned? And we sat on franchising really for 2 reasons. One, I sat down with somebody, they own 200 something restaurants, corporate owned. And they're like, well, my 200 restaurants is worth more than 1,000, a franchisor with 1,000 units, as far as money goes, because there's, you're keeping all the margin for yourself. So I totally see that. But my goal with this was to have, if we've done 60 franchises in under 6 months, is it out of the question to have 1,000? I don't think so. I think we can maybe get there. So if we have 1,000, what am I going to do with those 1,000 stores? Because whether you have 60 franchises or 1,000 franchises, either way, it's enough money to sell the business and retire off of. So what's kind of the bigger purpose? And I see myself having 3 customers: my franchisees, my employees and their employees, and then our end consumer. So how can I serve, like, because that's what I'm going after. How do I serve those 3 people and serve the most amount of people as possible? Well, you can expand so much quicker with franchising, because guess how much it costs us to open up these 60 stores? Well, it doesn't cost us anything. They pay for everything, right? And then they're paying us on top of that. So I want, several hundred franchisees that have given a really good model of relatively passive income that can be passed down to future generations. And I want to serve hundreds of people like that. It's actually another guy from Apex, Jeff Bracken, I think. Forgot his last name.
Jeff Bracken. Yep.
Yeah. So we bought his, he's got an HR service company, and at a corporate level, we're paying for life guidance coaches for all of our employees and all of the employees of our franchisees. So if you have 1,000 stores, that means there's 20,000 employees. And who works in a cookie store? 16 to 22-year-old, mainly female. Who's most affected by the mental health crisis? 16.
Brother, I love how you're tying it back.
Mainly female. Yeah. So
that's great.
If we can pay, and we are, I want 1,000 stores so I could positively affect 20,000 young people. And they pair them up with a life coach that's been through something similar, whether it's anxiety or depression or reaching peak performance, eating habit, quality sleep, mindfulness, getting into meditation, divorce, going through divorce, or taking care of a parent with Alzheimer's. Like there's like 50 things on there. Being a minority, like just anything, they get paired up with a coach, and there's unlimited calls. So again, that's why I wanted to go for that 1,000 mark, because I want to change the lives of as many people as possible. Now, on the end consumer, we think we'll build at least one wellness center per franchise. So if we can have 1,000 wellness centers throughout the country, probably 2,000, I think we could fund 2 of them per store. That's, hundreds of thousands of kids that'll go through those. So that's why I chose franchising. It, because you can make a lot more money, keep the control with lower amounts, and I totally respect that. But I wanted to make, because I'm going after the mental health impact, how can I grow faster and scale quicker? And it's franchising.
Yeah, well, that is very, very cool to hear the whole breakdown. I figured you were getting there to the wellness centers as part of it. The fact that you're offering coaching to the employees, that's, beyond the fact that that's a great benefit for the owner to have, right, as a hiring, benefit and a job benefit. It's just culturally, as part of your ethos, it's awesome to hear that. And I love when businesses build that in to their success model and how they operate. That's just so very cool to hear. Man, I've enjoyed our time together. I really do. This has been a great time. Thank you for toughing it out. I know you're not feeling 100%, but if you want to get in touch with Bennett, we've been flashing his stuff up on the screen. But if you're listening to this on audio, Bennett, why don't you just kind of run through how people connect with you, just so they can hear that?
Yeah, BennettMaxwell.com, BennettMaxwell.com. And you can connect with me on social media. I try to post good, relevant content every day on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And I also do about every other week, I write an In the Trenches report. So if you want to receive that report, you can subscribe there. And you can also inquire about franchising. If you're interested in, taking that next step, owning another business, but you're kind of scared to do it. Franchising is a very, very good option for you, because it's a low, again, the barrier to entry is just a lot lower, because the game plan, the playbook is already there. So anyways, that's the best way to connect with me, just kind of depending on how you want to connect.
Very good. Well, Bennett, it's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed having you on the show.
Appreciate it.
You're definitely living what I like to call those big ticket life principles, life and business on your terms. So appreciate you toughing it out, joining us. And man, I can't wait to see you get to 1,000 units. It's going to be amazing.
Appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you next week on the Big Ticket Life. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode of the Big Ticket Life. You've heard from another amazing guest living their own big ticket life, and now it's time to live yours. First, I'd love for you to take me up on my free gift to you. Claim your gift at gift.thebigticketlife.live. That's gift gift.thebigticketlife.live. See, all your life you've been told what is and what isn't possible by the loudest voices from the cheapest seats. It's time to finally do life and business on your terms. Sure, you've heard similar things, but without clarity on what can be done, it's easy to have your customers, employees, maybe even partners, and your spouse keep you from truly living a big ticket life. My big ticket methods shift you into that investor seat in your business, away from commodity and away from competition, into a market of one, so you can finally live your own big ticket life. So my gift to you is for you to book your discovery call today, where we'll uncover first the Chivo behaviors, those chief everything officer behaviors that hold you back, and why moving into the investor seat in your own business is critical. 2, we'll uncover the premium position that's up for grabs right now in your market that you're missing out on. And 3, which big ticket methodologies are just waiting to be dropped into your business to explode your sales and profits. So again, thanks for listening to this episode. I'd love for you to take action right now. Accept this gift. Book your call. Go to gift.thebigticketlife.live. Again, that's gift.thebigticketlife.live.